Hi everybody, and welcome to Chelsea Grottenbank's Facebook video. Today, this one is for all the partners out there, grandparents, whatever, that may have access to their kids, grandkids, stepkids, whatever, because this is a Mother's Day craft. Typically, when students are in school, they may be working on crafts with teachers, but we're not in school, we're at home right now. So this is something that you can do with the kids in your household that mom would really appreciate for Mother's Day. Today we're going to be making fingerprint dry clay items, and you can make whatever you want once you get the dry clay made. So let's first take a look at our recipe for dry clay. This one is really easy. You can do it at home. It's going to air dry. So let's look at that recipe. I'm just going to share my screen with you. So here is the air dry clay recipe. You're going to need 2 cups of baking soda. Now, for me, I cut this recipe in half because I was just making it for me, and it made quite a lot. Mine made this amount. This would be more than enough for multiple kids. So you can feel free to cut this recipe in half if you don't want to give them things that they could play with after or do other things with. So 2 cups of baking soda, 1 cup of cornstarch. So it would be 1 cup of baking soda and a half of cup of cornstarch if you're going to cut it in half, and 1 1/4 cups of water, which would be 3/4 of a cup. And then you're going to place all the ingredients into a pan over medium heat on your stovetop and stir it until it thickens to the consistency of whipped mashed potatoes. So I will tell you, it's very liquidy at first. You're going to stir it for what seems like quite a while until it really starts to heat up. And then once it gets going, it happens really quickly. You're going to want to err on the side of caution as far as how dry you make it. You don't want water in the bottom of the pot, but you definitely want to err on the more wet versus the more dry. The more dry you make this, the bigger tendency that it has to crack as it air dries. So, wet is okay. Kids, it doesn't have anything in it that's going to hurt your kids. So they can get it all over the hands. That's easy to clean up. And then this is what it should kind of look like once you have gotten it to the right consistency. So there's no water in the bottom of my pot there. It kind of looks like mashed potatoes. This is a really good recipe because it's white, very white, so you can then make it whatever color you want. Okay, so now we have our air dry clay. You're going to wrap it in a wet cloth. So this is damp. Making sure it's damp and not soaking wet, because you don't want it to be icky, sticky wet. You want to just let this cool off without drying out. So you're just going to wrap it in a wet cloth until it's cooled down, because it's going to come off the stove pretty hot. And then once it's cooled, you can divide it up and let the kids kind of knead it a little bit. So the longer that they play with it, the softer that it's going to be. It's a really nice consistency for doing things with. So then you can have some fun with it. So each child can break off a hunk. I'm going to roll mine out into a circle. I'm going to press it flat. They can use, this would be a really good time if you have any Play-Doh sets to break those out. The tools in there would be perfect for this. You could also let them use kitchen tools, but you're probably going to want to let them roll it out flat on a smooth surface so that it doesn't get all bumpy on the back. I'm holding mine up a little bit high because if I put it down on my table, you're not going to be able to see it. So I've kind of rolled this out into a circle. So there's a couple of things that you can do once you get to this point. You can make a holiday ornament. So this would be a great size and shape to hang on a Christmas tree, in a window. This would be great for anything. I'm sure that mom would love this. You can use cookie cutters to cut shapes out. So I can position this over here, and then pop out a shape. Okay. I don't have any heart shapes. Heart shapes would be great. Flowers would be great. Whatever you've kind of got, I wouldn't go overly crazy. There's some other things that you can do also, which I'm going to show you in just a little bit. So you've got this. So, but if you have one child, and this is a great shape, I would just have them take and press their finger into the middle. So you've got a fingerprint in there. Okay, so this is one star fingerprint. If you've got a couple of kids, they can each do their own, or they can do one together. So if you have 2 kids, this is fun. So I've gone back to my circle shape right here, so I have a little bit more room to play with. You can push one thumbprint in this way, so you've got one, and one in the other way. And now I have a heart. I'm trying to get it so that you might be able to see. So now I have a heart shape in the middle of my circle. Okay, so this is great with 1 or 2 kids, right? If you have 1, they can use their thumb for both sides. If you've got 2, each child can make a side of the heart. You're going to want to push it in a little bit without going all the way through. Okay, now at this point, you can go ahead and let it dry. If you want to make an ornament with this, I would recommend taking a dowel and poking a hole through the top while it's drying, so that you have a way to get a piece of string through there so that you can hang it up. So now you've got this, and all you have to do is leave it out to dry for several hours. The wetter the clay, the longer that it's going to take to dry. So I used a hairdryer to speed mine up a little bit, just so I could have one that is a little bit more done. Now, actually, let's go back to this one. If you wanted to make something for more kids, so say you had 4 kids or 5 kids or 3 kids, you can just do something a little bit bigger. You could do a star, you could do a shamrock, you could do a 4-leaf clover. A 4-leaf clover would be great for 4 kids, wishing mom a little bit of luck every day. You could do a star, so I have a bigger star cut out here. Oops, sorry, I'm shaking you. So I've cut out, kind of a bigger star, and each child could press their thumb into one of the arms of the star, and then you've got this really pretty. If you painted it out and put, a different color in the middle, it would look like a really beautiful flower. So this is absolutely something that you could do. Even if you had 3 kids or 2 kids, you could have them do multiple fingerprints, okay? If you want something a little bit smaller, you can take your fingerprint heart, okay, and you can trim around the outside so that you could use a knife. I'm actually using a pair of scissors right now because that is what I happen to have right here. It's really soft and malleable, so it will go right through. You really are just needing something to get through the clay so that it doesn't have to be clean to start with, right? So you just want something to take off the excess clay. So I've done this, and it's really rough around the edges right now, but all I then have to do is go back in and clean it up a little bit with my fingers, okay? Because it's nice and soft and malleable, so it will clean up pretty well. And then you can always have the kids go back in and redo their fingerprints. And then you have a really nice heart, okay? The thicker you make this, the longer it will take to dry. So if you have a couple of days, there's no reason you couldn't do something really thick and have them push down really hard and make mom a nice cute little dish to maybe keep a ring in up on by the sink. So if she has to take her rings off while she's washing her hands. Okay, so I now have one here that I have let dry. You can see that the heart is right in the middle. It's still a really nice white color. So now I can take a little bit of paint. I used this paint the other day. I don't have a ton of colors here. My kids are a little bit older. This happens to be a glitter paint. So you can take a glitter paint and a paintbrush and let the kids, or you can use whatever paint you have around the house. I wouldn't go crazy trying to track down paint or going to the store. Just use whatever you have in the house. If you don't have any paint in the house, you could put a little bit of food coloring in the dough when you're making it. I wouldn't go crazy because it stays a little bit damp. You don't want to have kids with green and blue and red and pink hands. So you can then just paint in the fingerprints a little bit. The thicker that the kids put on the paint, the more it's going to erase the ridges of their fingerprints. So you really want to let it dry well, and then go back and you may even want to loosen up the paint a little bit so they don't slop it on there really thick. You might want to put the paint on the brush for them. Older kids, you can just tell them what to do and they will be on it. But younger kids, you might want to help take a little bit direction. Don't put a ton of water in the paint because you don't want to then make that dough real sloppy. But just a little bit to thin it out a little bit so that it goes into the ridges and doesn't fill them in. So once you get that done, you're good to go. Let the paint dry. Make sure that's really nice and dry. And then you can just thread a string through and tie it at the top. And it's a great thing for mom to be able to hang up that has pictures of her kids' fingerprints. So we hope that you like this activity. It doesn't take a lot of materials. You should be able to do it with things that you can find around your house. So get on out there. We wish all of the moms out there a very happy Mother's Day next weekend. And you now have a week to go ahead and get this project done. We'll see you next week. Bye-bye.